Good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations is now called to order. Today is Thursday, May 2nd. The time now is 2 p.m. In compliance with the open government law, the notice for this public hearing were posted on the GovGuam public notice portal on GTA TV Channel 21, Docomo Channel 117, and the live stream on the Guam Legislature YouTube, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Thursday, April 18, and again on Tuesday, April 30th. Again, today is Thursday, May 2nd. The item that we'll be discussing this afternoon is the budget of the Mayor's Council of Guam in reference to Bill 236-37 COR, Committee on Rules by request of I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2025, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous and administrative provisions. At this time, I ask the members of the Mayor's Council of Guam panel to rise and be placed under oath by their sergeant arms. And Mayor Alec, if there's any other mayors that are going to testify, they need to stand also. Otherwise, they're not going to be allowed to speak. Okay, one time. Sergeant arms.
Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Mr. Chair Underwood, you may proceed.
Thank you. Please have a seat. Mayor Melissa, come on up and have a seat on the panel so that when you speak, you're already been sworn in. All right. The general rules for this budget hearing is provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopying and distribution. If you have any testimony that you're going to make, I hope you have it in writing so that we can distribute it among my colleagues. Okay? Panel members are asked to remain in the room for question or for additional testimony that may be desired by members of the committee. Question and testimony shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda. Personal inference as to the character or the motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of the general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted and will be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that you speak into the microphone and that it's on. You state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. We have the Oversight Chair of the Mayor's Council of Guam, Senator Dwayne Snickers, my Vice Chair, Senator Ted Otaigui, and Senator Brown. I'd ask the Mayor's Council of Guam to please provide their opening statement on their budget.
Half day, Mr. Chair. I am Jesse Alec, the Mayor of PT and the President of the Mayor's Council of Guam. Good afternoon. It's easy to forget that when a family doesn't have enough food for the week, or mom or dad has been laid off and water and power is disconnected, they call us first. From Dedido, Malesso, Piti, or Talafofo, those in need call Guam's mayors. Sometimes, my colleagues and our staff are the reason a child is able to eat today, or our mañana make it to the emergency room on time. Without a degree or credentials, we are family counselors, and oftentimes, an adopted son or daughter to help them navigate this tech-savvy age or accomplish tasks that might seem insurmountable. With support from our policymakers, we can be the providers of positive alternatives to boredom and idle time, to drugs and gang violence. Together, we can provide the tools for the next generation of impoverished and less fortunate brothers and sisters to pull themselves out of poverty and despair and become tomorrow's leaders. Sports facilities like gyms and baseball fields, village libraries, senior centers, and community centers are at the heart of our budget increase request. We have almost never asked for anything more than the bare necessities in previous budget requests. It is important to understand the changing climate and our growing needs. We must consider the unfunded mandates and the unfunded expected responsibilities of each of our offices. Mayor's offices are often called grass cutters, dead dog removers, and trash haulers. What many people may not understand is that our offices are called first by residents who are in need, including a child experiencing abuse within their own home, or those whose family members have medical appointments but don't have transportation, or an elderly resident in need of prescription refills, and of course the list goes on. For a myriad of concerns and challenges, mayoral offices are often the first line of defense, and our staff members are soldiers ready for deployment. We need to change the mindset from grass cutters to game changers. Allow me to justify a request for this enormous increase to our budget. Many of us maintain more than just secondary and tertiary roads. Our 5 maintenance workers cannot humanly manage to cut grass on every village road without assistance, especially when it is not within our mandate, but lies within our municipality. When you drive through a village that's sparkling clean, you might say, "Wow, great job, Mayor." By the same token, if it wasn't a good experience, you'd blame the mayor. But what many don't realize is much of what doesn't look good is legally someone else's responsibility. Our need for increased contractual services funding is then substantiated, because no matter whose responsibility, the mayor will handle it anyway. And not to mention the unfunded mandate of the open government law. It costs money to publish meeting notices. We're shocked that we weren't mandated to use high-tech audio-visual equipment and pay for live streaming services, although some of us already pay out of pocket for these applications. As in life, our facilities and equipment age. The constant use of all our equipment and vehicles needs supplies in order to be properly maintained. The rising cost of goods and largely fuel necessitate this requested increase. Currently, mayors have to reach into their pockets to cover the cost of gas for bush cutters, chainsaws, and riding mowers so as not to delay services to the community. The average lifespan of a bush cutter is 2 years. A mayor's office could potentially use this bush cutter daily, which is far beyond typical use and will need to be replaced even after adhering to a committed maintenance schedule. Listening to all our maintenance requirements gets boring, and everyone just expects us to magically get it done. Maintenance work is but a fraction of our responsibilities. At the end of this mayoral term, some may not be returning, and the funding for unused annual leave is necessary to completely separate these employees from the Mayor's Council of Guam. This amount of $878,809 is listed under miscellaneous appropriations. Moreover, it is imperative that we request your understanding and approval for continuing appropriation and prior year obligation authorization. With the implementation of the new financial management system and our intra-agency staffing challenges, the issuance of purchase orders continues to be delayed to this day. The current balances in each office have been earmarked and can be spent given this authorization. I'd like to point out that as the president of the Mayor's Council of Guam, I was invited to testify in Congress this past year on a bill that affects our villages. This fiscal year 2024 Budget Act did not allow me to use government funds for this trip to Washington, D.C. Because it was an issue germane to the majority of my colleagues, I decided it was prudent to personally cover this expense. My invitation from Congress was not merely sufficient. A supporting resolution from this body was also necessary, but for whatever reason was never adopted. Considering these provisions for fiscal year 2025 is appreciated. The Mayor's Council continues to discern the best possible methodology for distributing our budget allotment to the 19 municipalities. This year, I solicited specific budgetary needs from each office. Their individual requests are reflected in our submission today. Therefore, we ask for a lump sum appropriation. Lastly, you must know that beyond our mandated responsibilities, the mayors, vice mayors, and our staff take special care of our living community, from sports teams and dance groups to after-school programs and community events, to caring for our manamko and assisting those in need. The services and programs we facilitate are necessary elements to building a healthy culture of life in our municipalities. So, I dare say we are game changers, and this year's budget request is not far-fetched. It is our reality. Can you expect real change with the status quo? And can you expect better services with the same funding levels? This is not a pipe dream. It's a plea to our policymakers to understand that our offices are holistic in nature. We care for the entire community, the neighbor, the family, the team, the park, and our land. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Is there anyone else going to testify? Go ahead. Now, Mayor Gogui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Chairman San Agustin, and senators are here this afternoon for this public hearing. For the record, my name is Jesse Gogui, and the Mayor of Ortiz-Chalampago. I've been the mayor of this beautiful municipality for almost 16 years, and we have seen over these years a significant amount of changes over the 4 terms I've served our community. I first want to applaud Mayor Alec as the president of the Mayor's Council of Guam. For the first time over a 4-term period, has he allowed or engaged the mayors in submitting and stepping forward to justify a village budget. Because there are 19 municipalities throughout Guam, and every municipality is different. There are a lot of common things, but there are a greater amount of differences than there are common when it comes to expenditures. I will just briefly discuss what I submitted to Mayor Alec that he incorporated into this year's budget. And so for just Ortiz-Chalampago alone, my total budget request was $261,578.53. Now, that is the total budget that I had requested, and that's not including taking away the $150,000 that we annually receive from the host community premium benefits that has been blessed upon our village and the community of, or the municipality of Inalahan as a result of the solid waste that we currently house for this island. So if we take away the $150,000 from this, basically it equates to $111,578.53. Now, of this amount, just $250,000 of that is for capital outlay, and that's what I'll focus on. And the reason why our capital outlay is so high this year, or this upcoming fiscal year, as many of you know, last year we broke ground, or we actually did a ribbon cutting ceremony for our new mayor's office, and that building alone there's no lien on it. We didn't borrow money to build it. We used our host community premium funds that we had set aside since 2013 when we first started receiving funds. And so when we went out and with DPW to publish an invitation for bid on that project, it came in at about $493,000. And so that's what we paid. There is no lien. But simultaneously, we also went out to bid for a new multi-purpose center that is currently under construction. The project is roughly about $10 million. It included funds, and really what triggered our success in moving this project forward was a $3.5 million grant that we, the village, applied for to the Department of Defense, and that we were awarded in 2020. Subsequently, we had to come up with the balance of what was needed to fully construct and sign the contract for this particular project. Specifically, we knew that we were going to have to go out and borrow maybe as high as $3 million to supplement the cost of the project. The balance of the $10 million cost came from a governor's grant that she used or she gave to us under the Department of Interior discretionary funds that was available to her to offset the variance of what we had initially estimated and what the final bid came in at. So she gave us almost $2.8 million. And so the key is the loan that we knew we needed to go out and try to get for this project, for the construction of this project. We finally were successful in being awarded a loan from USDA at 2.5% in the amount of about $2.7 million, roughly $266,000 a year, or for the cost of the project. This equates to a $157,000 loan or debt service annually for the next 25 years once the occupancy permit is issued for this structure. And so that should be right around the second quarter of FY 2025. So that debt service will be needed to be paid starting around January of 2025. So in order to accommodate that, we know that we were going to, and that's what we used to leverage this loan, was our host community premium of $150,000. And that's set in the budget, that's allocated in the budget, but the difference that's needed, the other $7,000, will have to come from somewhere. And one of the things that I included in the package that you may have received is this thing here, village comparison. It kind of gives you an idea of all 19 villages. I showed the population of each of the villages based on the 2020 census, the local road mileage that we often use to compute, our budget, and the land area of each village and how they rank. The second page is basically a comparison of the appropriations for the Mayor's Council of Guam. And I only took 2 years, FY 2019, which is pre-COVID, and the current budget which we were functioning on, and which is significant or substantially less. In fact, it's over 50% less than what we were receiving in 2019. And so for Chalampago Order, you will see that in 2019, our operational budget, that doesn't include payroll, that does not include utilities, that does not include pretty much those two things, utilities and payroll. So power, water, telephone, and power, water, telephone, and payroll. That's covered at the Mayor's Council of Guam level. But the balance of what's available comes down and gets divided amongst the mayors, predominantly based on a minimum amount for each of the villages to operate on, and then whatever the balance is, then it's divided up based on road mileage. And so, because we are the 7th largest district in road mileage, obviously, we had roughly the 7th largest amount that it was appropriated, budgeted for the villages, the 19 villages of this island. But utilizing that same formula, our budget in 2019 went down to basically $53,176.64 in 2024. And specifically, that's a 51.38% cut, or 58% cut, in what we normally receive to maintain the village. And I think many of you know that as you drive around the village, because of this 50% cut and the operations of our all 19 mayors' villages, you've actually seen in most villages, more the larger villages than the smaller villages, about a 50% reduction in the maintenance of the villages. The grass isn't cut as regularly as it used to be. Trash isn't picked up as regularly as it used to be. Dead animals stay on the roads a lot longer than they used to be. And so the whole host of things that we were utilizing these funds for has been substantially cut. And so if you take a look at the last 2 pages, I wanted to include photos of what we were using, one of the things we were using contractually for the village of Chalampago Guåhan. As many of you know, I'm sure many of you have received phone calls about roads. Mayor or Senator, my road hasn't been paved, and typically the response, if not answered by you, answered by your staff, has have you spoken to your mayor? Now, the paving of roads, we all understand, is predominantly done by Public Works. But, with 19 municipalities to contend with, 19 mayors to support, that's a difficult task. So innovatively, what we did in Order Chalampago is try to work with what monies we had in order to provide some kind of improvements, the improvements to our gravel roads beyond the normal paving that DPW has been doing and is currently doing for our communities. And so the roads that you see that are graveled, and then the after photos, that's recycled asphalt that we started doing back in 2009 when I first took office. And to this day, many of those roads are still in as good of a shape today as they were when we paved them with recycled asphalt however long ago. Some, since 2009, and others as recently as 2019, 2020. Now, because of the budget cut, that's something we no longer do. We haven't been doing it since 2019 because of the budget cuts and our ability to set aside funds to do that kind of work. Ergo, we're getting more calls from people who've lived on graveled roads or live along graveled roads for more than 2 decades, because their road is, maybe has 4 or 5 homes, and because they only have 4 or 5 homes, they don't become a greater priority as the homes where they have 10, 15, 20, because we've got to look at impact as well as, how long the road has been graveled. And so those are some of the things that we've had to cut out because of the budget cuts. And all I think the mayors are asking for is that the legislature take a closer look at the allocations of funds. And in fact, I thought it was a disservice to the mayors of Guam when we no longer, I guess based on the recommendation of OPA, we no longer allocated funds from the Territorial Highway Fund for the Mayor's Council of Guam. I mean, that, I can easily say that 50% of our work is to maintain our roads. It's not just to cut grass, but to repair signs. And when we do that, we have to go out and get contracts to have a company come in, sometimes just replace a sign, but oftentimes replace the whole fixture. Re-anchor a post, remount the signs, and make the signs themselves. And that is a costly affair. Just one placard of sign, the sign alone, can cost you up to about $100 per sign. And the more roads you have, the more signs you're going to have. And that just isn't the names of the roads. We're talking about speed limit signs, stop signs, and so on and so forth. And that it would be great if DPW, Public Works, could do all of those things for all 19 mayors. But realistically, we know they can't. And so I really implore and ask that the legislature rethink that decision in cutting out the funding that the mayors used to get from the Territorial Highway Fund that we use to maintain our territorial roads. In fact, the roads that are paid by federal funds are only the routed roads. If you take a look at the 2009 Highway Transportation Plan, which outlines, or the 2008 Highway Transportation Plan, that plan itself talks about the roads, the federal roads, the routed roads that need to be worked on. And Public Works has done a good job, and they've been keeping on track to accomplish those targets. But the one document that we failed to remember that exists is the 2009 Village Street Maintenance Plan. The contractor who went through all of the village roads to take a look at all of the things that needed to be done, paving, signage, widening, that, and so on and so forth. That plan back in 2009 estimated that it would take the government of Guam over $700 million to do all of the things that needed to be done in that village street maintenance plan. For Order Chalampago alone, it was $67 million. Well, we're not gonna get there anytime soon to accomplish those tasks. But anything that we can do to improve these roads and improve the quality of life of our people would definitely help. And so what you've taken away from some of us, and in particular, Ordit Chalampago, is our ability to do that, to improve the quality of our life, along our streets for the residents of Chalampago, so they're no longer traveling over these Kaskalhu roads that have to be repaired and replaced, especially during rainy season, almost every other month. And so I just, I wanted to share this information with you and have you take a look at the information about the villages and how the makeup of the villages, both by population, road mileage, and how big they are or how small they are. And then the budget comparison between 2019 and FY 2024, and how our budgets have been substantially cut. And so when you go out and drive through your village or drive home and look through the villages that you drive through, and you see that maybe 2019 isn't, or 2024 isn't looking as good as the way the villages looked back in 2029. This is self-explanatory as to why. We cannot operate, without the funding. As a matter of fact, sometimes, especially with the larger villages, and even some of the smaller villages, will actually go out and contract to supplement our workforce, what we call our community maintenance workforce. Each village, regardless of size, is authorized, under the Mayor's Council of Guam, only authorized 5 maintenance workers, to take care of all of the maintenance requirements of their community. And so I'm a numbers guy, so statistically speaking, if you take away one maintenance guy for whatever reason, he goes on leave, he gets injured, which is a common thing amongst the mayor's staff because they're out there doing potentially injurious work. You take away one person, that's 20% of your maintenance workforce. So there are times and occasions, including in Ordit Chalampago, where we have to set up contracts, IDIQs with people who do grounds type maintenance and call them in to supplement our workforce. This year, we've been fortunate because of Typhoon Mawar. We have the non-displaced worker program that has helped augment our staff and do the work. So we're not getting as many phone calls, or many of us are not getting as many phone calls saying, hey, Mayor, you guys haven't been in here 3 months to cut our grass or to cut the vegetation along the shoulders of the roads. And that when they call you to tell you that we haven't been doing the job, well, have you spoken, the typical response is, well, have you spoken to your mayor? And they do. And we field these phone calls. But at the end of the day, one of the things I really hate telling people is that we can't do something because we just don't have the funds to do it. We don't have the personnel to do it. And that in order for this not to be the case, and for this body to support what you all call frontline people that are direct links to our constituents, I ask that you really take a serious look at what we've requested and do the best that can be done in order to support the efforts of this community. So lastly, I just wanted to touch on one thing because it really is going to be a thing that I'm going to have to juggle. That if this body doesn't support our budget requests, one of the added things, because we're taking out a USDA loan on a 30,000 square foot multi-purpose center that will be used and will be leveraged as an emergency shelter, a tier 1 emergency shelter, and would be the first emergency shelter outside of the Guam Department of Education system, is we have to insure the building because there is a USDA loan attached to it. So I've estimated that it's going to cost, annual insurance is going to cost us roughly around $1 a square foot. So contractually, I'm going to need an additional $30,000. That's why just contractually alone, I've requested for $250,000, $150,000 of it, which will come, of course, from the host community premium funds we get annually. But even just under contractual alone, if I were to depend solely on the budget we receive for 2024, we'd be in the hole. Nothing would get done. I'd be in violation of my loan agreement with USDA because I certainly wouldn't be able to provide for the insurance coverage of our new facility. And when you take a look at the $53,000 I got this year, about $20,000 of it goes to fuel alone for our vehicles, our tractors, our bush cutters, anything that operates, using diesel or gas. We average about $20,000 a year just in fuel alone. For the larger villages, it's probably even more. Even for the southern villages, because they have to drive, a lot farther just to come to meetings, come to these public hearings. I can imagine that their fuel cost alone isn't much different from the other mayor's offices. And so I strongly implore, all of you and this body to take a look at what we requested, and that there is rationale and reason behind why the amount is so high. Things have not gotten cheaper. Things have gotten more expensive. And this body, based on the budget that was approved for FY 2024, has asked me to operate. I mean operate, because in my budget request, I didn't ask for any capital improvement, CIP funds. I just asked for operational funds. And this body in 2024 has asked me to operate with more than 50% of what we received in 2019, which meant that I could only get 50% of the work done. And I've had to explain that to my residents, and sometimes, humbly, because, they were accustomed to a certain level, a certain standard that came from all of the mayor's offices, which in recent years, because of our budget cuts, has not been, as something we've not been able to produce. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration of the Mayor's Council of Guam budget as submitted.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak?
Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Anthony Charglove, Mayor of Inalan. Thank you for having me here today. I'm here primarily to support. I know that what Mayor Alec has presented to you is a budget that has exponentially grown, and I believe that it's high time, I think, that we need to present a budget that is reflective of what our true needs are. For many years, and I have to be honest that when I first came in 2021, I was really blown away at the money that was afforded for Inalan's use. So real quick, $49,000 was what was there operationally. Of course, I didn't have to worry about the utilities. I didn't have to worry about the employees' personnel costs. But $49,000 was what's left remaining for Inalan. You take the $29,000 in fuel, I only have $20,000 to operate. So I was really blown that, the rest of the mayors accepted the budget the way they got there, so when I really felt they were being shortchanged for so many reasons. And I come into this position, I find that I need to take care of the senior center in Inalan. I come to find out that there's no real attention given to the Inalan swimming pool. And so I find myself having to take care of all of this with having no funding to make sure these things work. And those are just the small startup that I find as I move along. Here we are now, we're in a position where we're being approved for FEMA reimbursement in terms of doing repairs to our facilities, but the key word there is reimbursement. I need to have funding today to get these projects done, whether it be repairing the baseball field, the basketball field, and whatever other facilities that I own, before FEMA even considers reimbursing me back. How can you reimburse me something I don't have? And so this is why I've opted, and I spoke up at our Mayor's Council meeting, that we need to have a CIP funding that's going to be reflective of issues like this, especially as we move forward. We had a big meeting yesterday in my village regarding the feral swine, the wild pigs running all over the place. And I'm there, USDA is presenting to me traps that cost $4,000, $3,000, and $2,000. I mean, they themselves are only able, the Southern Water Soil Conservation were only able to purchase 5. I mean, obviously that's not enough to cover the entire island, so obviously I need to go and find even 1 or 2 traps, but the question is, where do I find the money for that? When I don't even have it right now, right? And there's many things as we move forward. So to have the same budget year after year after year, and what I have seen since I've been here, is almost saying, we just want you to continue what you're doing. We don't want you to improve. We don't want you to have a vision to make your village better. You're withholding the mayors down when we don't have the kind of funding that we need. I'll give you an example. I personally, I like to go and purchase a big statue of my chief Godel, instill the pride in my people, and have that installed. That, I think, would be an iconic thing to have in Inalahan. But again, that's money required, money I don't have. But we are here right now, and I'm hoping that we get more yays than nays when we're talking about an exponential growth in our budget. Because there's a lot of plans. I know a lot of the mayors are very creative, a lot of things, but you're only as creative as the money you have. So when we're restricted, obviously we restrict our services to our people. And you've heard Mayor Alec also say we're also the trash pickers, the dog collectors, whatever is out there. And you know, it's deep in our heart that we ran for a purpose, and the purpose is to serve, not to be served. So we're here saying, give us the funding that we need, the funding that we're asking for. What that does in turn, in retrospect to you, is that it makes your lives easier. You don't need to be receiving the calls about the dead dog or the broken roads or whatever. Give us the funding because we are the stewards of our own municipalities. There's nobody that cares more than Inalahan than myself. Nobody cares more for PD than our President, Mayor Alec. So this is what I'm saying. Give us the resources we need, not necessarily to be successful, but to improve the lives of our people that are out there. The same people who come to you for the same request that we want to resolve our issues. We believe in solutions, not excuses, results, not reasons. I know I'm really sick and tired of having to give some lame excuse to my constituents because I simply just don't have the funds. And I know in the back of their minds, they're saying, you need to hustle up and go get it. Just like all the other mayors are getting the same talk regarding that. So I know Mayor Jesse Gogui was saying that his budget request this year was something like $222,000. Inalahan's budget this year request is $980,000. And I know coming from a very small village comparable to Dededo or anywhere else, but the dreams and the plans that I have is huge and big, and I want to get it done sooner rather than later. Like I've always said, a budget is nothing more than your plan, your vision for what you intend to do for the year. So obviously at 980, I have a lot of plans. One of the big challenges that we have down south is the heavy vegetation, whether it be flood, whether it be protrusion coming out. I want to buy a side cutter that costs $280,000. That's at this point, that's cheap. Because I've heard of DPW, they're now up around the $300,000, $400,000 range. So $280,000 for that. We also want to get the backhoe. You know already that every time there's a rain event, Malesso gets all of the backhoes and everything that they need down there simply because they have a much more severe situation. But to augment and to supplement what I need, I'm saying we need to get a backhoe also down there. Likewise with the dump truck. How many times have our people have died? I mean, somebody dies, they need a Coro request, but I'm getting this, I'm sorry, we don't have a dump truck. Or I'm sorry, I don't have the backhoe, it's deployed somewhere else. Again, these are the same repetitive excuses I'm hearing time and time again. So obviously to resolve these, then we need to have those equipment, and if it has to be shared, then we'll share it down south. But if at minimum, we need 3, one for the north, one for the central, one for the south. Likewise with the backhoe and likewise with the side cutter. Those are huge amounts. Yes, they're very costly up front. And they're anticipated to last anywhere between 20, 25 years if we have the right maintenance. And as we know, and as we've heard, even from you senators here, government is not good at maintenance. Well, truthfully, I believe maintenance can be implemented, but they just were never given the funding. I don't just speak for the mayor's office, I'm talking about public works and everybody else. Given a brand new building, but no maintenance monies was ever identified or granted for them, right? So here we are again. So I'm a big thing that CIP has to be a big part of our budgeting, something that I haven't seen in the last, well, since I've been the mayor, then I've seen others from the past. No one has ever budgeted for CIP funds. So again, I say, you know, it just blows me that the mayors, for whatever reason, make it out every year. with so little money. But imagine how much more can be accomplished if they're given that much more. So again, I plead to all of you, senators, I please ask you to please consider, because I think what Mayor Alec has done is put together a comprehensive, a very collaborative effort in putting this budget together. No longer are we wanting to put just a lump sum and throw it in there. And for those, many of you that don't know, the way things work is that we divvy it up based on the road based on the road mileage. So what does that mean for Mayor Omatek? His road mileage will never change. But if his population increases, is it still going to be divvied up on 5 miles? Very unfair. And so I've been a big stickler that we need to change the formula of how we divvy up money, and it should be based on population. Give you a case in point. Hogget has more people than Inalahan, but they get less money because I have a bigger road mileage. I am willing to suck up the difference in terms of making it right. Do it via population. Because at some point, Inalahan may exponentially grow. And I want the budget to be reflective of it as it grows, right? So again, I mean, you look at Agustin. Agustin has less populated than Agana Heights. But because Agustin has more road mileage, Agustin gets more money and Agana Heights gets less. Again, very unfair. So there's been a lot of problems, honestly, with the mayoral budget. And this is going to take a long, comprehensive time to fix all of this. But I'll give you one other example that I don't like. I come into this organization, my staff, the newest staff on board, is getting the same as Agana Heights. Is that fair? That Agana Heights, who's been there for literally 32 years this year, the staff that has been loyal and committed to him is getting no more than my staff. I just came in. The other thing is those staff that decided to stay there for the last 32 years never got an increment. So we should really look at giving our staff, if this staff is loyal to me for 4 years, give them an increment, at least one increment. So progressively, out of 28 years, that staff would have gotten 7 increments or $7. Very small to pay for somebody's loyalty and all of that, dedicated to you and the community. Like I said, there's a lot of problems, and I want to say more, but we'll go ahead and shorten it now, and we'll definitely do a round table if we have to, but I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Mayor Tavares, would you like to speak for Deredu, the largest village on the island?
Yes, I would like, I'm also here to support the Mayor's Council budget request. I am Melissa Tavares, Mayor of Deredu. Last year, almost a year ago, we were faced with a typhoon, a very strong typhoon that really devastated our entire island. And after 20 plus years of not having a storm that strong, we saw a lot of damages, to include facilities that that are under our purview. I just met with our FEMA representatives from the recovery staff, because we're ready to start sending out, getting our price quotes and getting our requisitions ready. However, I have one problem with typhoon repairs that were done to my Estumbo gym, which is a Tier 2 shelter, and we got a grant for that through GURA to make that Tier 2 shelter. So repairs were done to the Estumbo gym after Typhoon Pongsongwa. And there were some damages in the last year during Typhoon Mawar. I'm not going to be able to be covered because we did not have insurance on the facility. And that's a $29,000 repair that needs to get done. I have funding sources in other places where we can, be creative, like the mayor's all said, we're all creative, and to supplement those repairs. But going forward, for all the other facilities that we need repaired, which will happen very soon, so that we can start using these facilities again, our sports facilities, our senior citizen centers, our office. Once those repairs are done, we also need to insure. And to take the money that we're given after the budget is passed to take out of our operations budget and purchase the insurance, of course, is going to really take a chunk of our funding from our operations. So, I support the request that Mayor Alec has set forth. However, I also want to talk about heavy equipment. 15 years ago, we bought a backhoe for the municipality of Derido. There were 3 backhoes bought that year. It was Jotnia, Derido, and Jigo. We're still surviving. What's important is maintenance and operators. Make sure your operators know what they're doing, and make sure that after so many miles or hours, maintenance is done. Many of these heavy equipment companies that service these equipment do not take government purchase orders because we don't have a good support, no good reputation for paying on time. So thankfully, we have our non-appropriated fund and a very good supportive community that understands that when we need to repair and buy parts for the backhoe, that we're using our non-appropriated fund, and we have a good supportive municipal planning council which knows how important it is. So maintenance on heavy equipment and having the proper drivers, operators that are trained is very key to keeping heavy equipment going in the communities. And so, of course, we all are very creative. We have our festivals, and I have a weekend festival every Saturday and Sunday morning, which provides us with the additional funding, supplemental funding that we need to operate in our village. However, sometimes, we're really digging deep into our pockets when we're enticing more vendors to come and use our facilities so that at the flea market, so that we just replenishes the funds that we use on a weekly basis. So, and we do our quarterly reports. I know that you see that every quarter when we send our copies to the speaker and she distributes that we do have, we're ready for an audit. It should one be needed to be done because we have our books in order. But a lot of times, again, our funding is equally distributed. After the typhoon, this body was gracious enough to give us all 100,000. It took me a little over a month to finish my 100,000. It took several smaller villages several months to complete their 100,000. But the bottom line was we're very thankful for that because we were able to hire heavy equipment with operators and pay for disposals in some areas that we were being charged for disposal. But that was important because having 5, 6, 7, up to 7 maintenance workers is not cutting it for our maintenance workers to do the kind of cleanups that we had to do after the typhoon. So I am in support of Mayor Alec's request. We're going to have several turnarounds in the Mayor's Council, and I just thank this body for giving us the opportunity. I've been here for almost 24 years, and I would like to see a happy exit and making sure that I leave whoever behind a good slate of equipment and things for whoever's going to take over after me. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to also recognize the Speaker Talai has joined us this afternoon. Now, Mayor Alec, it was a couple of years ago, right? We sat down in our office. We discussed about the Territorial Highway Fund, exchanging it for general fund. Am I correct?
Correct.
And that happened, correct? Okay.
Correct.
So the discussion of taking it away, no, you didn't lose anything. Nobody, the mayor's council never lost that, okay? You maintain it. You still do. Next one is, how much money in ARP money do you have left? About 8 million?
No, it's about 5 million.
About 5 million? And where's it going?
So the 5 million that will pay for the vehicles, the 21, I believe it is. If I'm correct, it's 21 vehicles. It could be more. It's going to pay for computer hardware for all the mayor's offices, including our admin office, and the computer software for the village management program, the database. The balance of that is actually has already been distributed to the mayor's offices. But again, with the issue, it's got the same issue with the new financial management system. But on top of that, we were waiting from DOA, we were waiting to receive an authorization to use the fiscal 23 purchase orders. And so since November of last year, when I found out that we were not given the authorization, I wrote DOA to request for the authorization to use the POs that we had in place. And we only received notice, I believe it was in April, just last month, that we could no longer use it and that we would have to deobligate. And so understand, senators, that it doesn't take a day to deobligate a purchase order. Each mayor has to go and write a memo for each of those purchase orders that we already had encumbered and submit it to our mayor's council office. They have to work with DOA to de-encumber that purchase order. And then the mayor has to resubmit another purchase order to use that money. So it's safe to say that almost no ARPA money has been used. If you'll, PD is a prime example, and I'm sure you both have seen my report. In my ARPA report, you'll see zero expenditure since the first quarter, because I couldn't use anything. And so that's why there's that balance for the first tranche.
You couldn't use anything because of why?
Because if they were all encumbered under purchase orders, we have to cancel the purchase order.
And
But we
restart
only
it.
found out in April.
Okay.
And so I only got the memo in April, but I requested since November.
I'm concerned that based on your budget request, does that reflect any of that money that you're going to use on ARP money?
So the budget request does not.
Does it repeat anything here?
No, it does not.
You sure?
It does not, because
Okay.
everything that we have encumbered, the purchase orders that were requested were already earmarked for something, but we needed the permission to use it in fiscal 24, which we did not get.
Will you be able to use it? Will you be able to exhaust all that money now?
We're trying. We are really trying to do it. So like I said, it's a process. We have to submit the request to de-encumber the purchase order, every single one of them, and then we have to do a new purchase order.
I'm just concerned, do you believe you can finish it before the fiscal year ends? That's what I'm concerned.
I'm concerned about it as well.
Huh?
I'm concerned about the same thing, because we had a big problem with the financial management system, the new one.
Understood.
So we just, 2 weeks ago, senators, we just got our email addresses that will allow us to access the financial management system, which allows us to process personnel and purchase orders. So I have mayors waiting since December to hire. So you're going to see vacancies, right? Well, we couldn't hire anybody, and we couldn't properly terminate anybody up until 2 weeks ago, because we were waiting to get our credentials. And that's the truth. We couldn't do anything. So the mayors are
Yeah. No, we understand that, because there was an oversight on it, on DOA, on the FMS. I'm just more concerned about
the ability to spend it.
I was told you got $8 million in ARP money, and I want to make sure it's all spent. I don't want to
Right.
make the excuse, wherever it needs to go. And then on the same
So,
token,
I do want to be clear about that. I told you about the first tranche. The second tranche is $8 million, which we have not received. So that $8 million, again, that $8 million is going to be, and I'll send it if you need, but I did request an expenditure plan from each mayor for the $8 million. And so we divided it roughly to be about $300,000 per village. So every village has a plan for the $300,000. So as soon as we receive it, that plan is executed.
okay, that sounds good. Okay, On the other part,
So, but that's not inclusive of this budget, right? So it doesn't account for anything here.
just show us a copy of your plan, and then we'll
Sure.
we'll vet
Sure.
it, and we'll confirm that, okay?
Sure.
I trust you, Jess, you know, you're gonna say that, but we'll see it, you know.
Yes, for
When
sure.
when it's written, then we'll know.
And then I do want to assure you, though, you're going to notice the equipment amount. If a village or a mayor had requested for equipment, heavy equipment, of course, the stipulation is that there's a maintenance plan before that purchase order is executed.
Great.
Because Mayor Savars said it, and perhaps one of my other colleagues has said it, but that has always been our problem. And for as long as I've known Mayor Savars, she's had that issue with her backhoe, or dump truck, I believe, whatever it is. But I'm not a mechanic, but I hear about her hydraulic everything, and so I get it. And so I do want to assure this body that a maintenance plan will have to come with a purchase of any kind of heavy equipment if we're granted that opportunity.
Okay, on another issue, you remember, I think it was last year or 2 years ago,
Correct?
the director of OFB visited the mayor's council office,
Correct?
and they tried to present where we're gonna break down the budget per village. What happened there? Can you tell my colleagues that nobody cared for it?
So nobody cared for it as an individual budget, or I don't recall what the plan was.
I think it was based on population.
Oh,
It
that's
was
the
to break-
problem.
Remember, it was to break it all down, and exactly what
Yeah.
Mayor Chakla brought up. And what my concern is that we want to work with all you mayors, okay? And I don't believe, and I hear Mayor Chakla, doesn't make sense. Okay, you got all these roads, but you hardly have anybody. Understood, you still need to fix the roads. But when you have an area that's so populated, it doesn't match up. Sure, one day maybe some of those villages may grow in population, but it doesn't still match up. And I just need the mayor's council to come to some agreement among all you mayors of exactly how it should be distributed, because it's never fair for Dededo to get the same as the smallest village, Agana. Okay, and it doesn't work out.
So-
But I need you folks to sit down and come to an agreement of some sort so that my colleagues can see how you want to distribute it, and then it makes sense. Because right now, I know it doesn't, and I know it's a headache for you. When you sit down, you're like, okay, I'm going to give Dededo 100,000, Agana 100,000, like Mayor Chuggo said. But 200, 300 people, something's just not working out. The math just doesn't match. And we want to make some sense to it. Because when Mayor Gogui says he's got to make sure he covers the insurance for that new building, great building. We want to make sure that's covered too.
So, Senator, Mr. Chair, that's what this budget reflects, is individual village requests.
It does.
It does,
The 19.
yes.
Okay. Then what we'll do is we'll massage it, we'll take a look at it again, and you're talking about this pack, right?
That,
I just want to make sure. I'm going to
Me too, I
massage
wanna
this,
make
and
sure
I'll reach out to
don't-
you.
we want to make sure na mga
Binaseguro ang bilay na dinansya. What's that one? Is that this one?
This is the budget request,
Yeah, the 19. It came up to
Yeah.
19.
right?
You want the issue I got is that, we normally when we kick out a budget, it's lump sum. Then it becomes your problem. But we got to fix this right, because every time it becomes the mayor's council's problem, it becomes a problem to us. Because why? Some are going to say, I want to get equal.
Correct, and that's why,
Por favor.
that's how we derived this request this year.
So if we can figure out how to fund you, if we can figure out how to fund you the 19 million, it's going to be broken down per village, and if we're successful in funding you the 19, let me just throw you hypothetically. I'm not saying I'm going to support it 100%, okay? But if we're able to, then I'm going to request that we put in the budget per village what they're going to get, so that nobody can debate no more. Will the mayor's council be good with that?
Yes, we're going to be good with that, because that is what this reflects, like I said, Mayor,
Okay.
Senator.
I just want to make sure, when I ask my colleagues to speak, we'll figure that out then.
Okay.
But I'm going to have the oversight chair first speak, ask questions, and then the speaker, and then we'll go to my vice, and then Senator Brown. Senator Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, my dad was a commissioner.
Yes, I
And,
remember. I don't remember, but I know.
and I asked him, I said, Dad, can I be just like you? He goes, no, munga. Don't do it.
Could be better.
Yeah, now I understand. Now I understand why. Yeah, so, you know, Senator Joanne said something on the public hearing yesterday. I mean, not the public hearing, but the what was that? The end of the session? It was end of the session, yeah, extension of remarks, and, you know, I wanted to go ahead with the $15 million for GPA power rebates, but, you know, after a while, and I mulled that over, I said, oh, wait, you know, maybe we can find ways to better spend that, and she made me realize that. I just want to thank her publicly for that. But there's another issue, or something else here. You wanted a whole, I mean, how many years have you had the same budget? That's a question I wanted to ask. Mayor.
At least, gosh, around the same budget for my entire term since 2017. It's been around the same.
Anybody here
And then
been any
before
longer?
me, it was Mayor Suarez and Mayor Gogui, and they can probably speak to that before 2017.
Anybody want to speak to that?
Well, you know, this is the fundamental difference. You know, for the officers, they see the entire budget, and they pay attention to the entire budget. When the Mayor's Council of Guam skims off what they believe is necessary for the operations of the Mayor's Council of Guam, payroll, utilities, and whatever special projects they're earmarked, they believe they should earmark funds for. Whatever is left over is what is divided up amongst the 19 municipalities. All I know from my perspective is that in 2019, as I reflected in the spreadsheet that I provided, in 2019 compared to 2024, I've had a 51% cut in my operational funds. That's huge. So if the Mayor's Council budget didn't really change much, something changed at the council level to reflect that significant cut of funds, because it's not just 2024, it's been 2024, 2020, all the way since COVID, basically. So from 2020 to 2024, we've seen a gradual reduction of our operational funds for each of the 19 municipalities.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I was just trying to understand, you know, also where Senator Joseph Agustin is coming from. So in the past, what we do is we would allocate the budget for you, and then you guys broke it down. But in this instance, you want us to put it in statute, in law, so that way when we give it to you, it's already broken down for you. Is that,
Well,
is that kind of like where we're going?
Senator, I think the whole purpose of this exercise amongst the mayors, and the reason why, at least the ones you see here sitting today, has advocated for the allowance of mayors to submit a budget that they are going to behold themselves to, is to get them to do their job. What monies do you need to operate your communities? And submit it and be beholden to it. In the past, we're beholden to what we get. You know, I mean, in the past, I'm saying over my 16 years in office, the budget I get is the budget I work with. And I tweak then what I prioritize as needing to be done now, or something that I can push to another fiscal year, which is one of the reasons why carryovers have been essential to the Mayor's Council of Guam. And for me, in particular, the limited gaming fund. And the reason, let me give you an example. Recently, in 2021, we just replaced all of the stadium lights around our baseball field. Our baseball field is a baseball field equivalent in size to the Paseo Stadium. It is not a softball field that you find in most of the communities. It's a true size. There's 8 stadium lights around that baseball field. And so in 2021, we had those stadium lights replaced. It cost us almost $100,000 to replace those stadium lights. But nobody budgeted me for $100,000 to do that one project. So over time, we've allowed what I've done is I've allowed the carryovers in my limited gaming funds to reach a point where I could say, now I can do that project. And it's been something that I've been wanting to do since 2009 when I first took office. But again, you have to prioritize the work that you know needs to get done in the community with what funds are available. Now, unlike Mayor Chargaloff, he actually submitted, monies or amounts for CIP, for capital improvement projects, and that's great. I didn't do that this year only because I've got this $10 million facility that I need to stand up and operate and make sure that I can not only operate it, but I can maintain it. Once that's done, then I say, okay, from a rational point of view, I can move on to the next project because now I know what the balance of my resources are, my funding is, to do the additional capital projects that I want done in the village. If they're small, that's all well and good. But we're not talking about, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 projects. We're talking about projects sometimes in excess of $100,000. In fact, the same thing happened, and to our good fortune, we did have the first tranche for the APPRA funds, and that was $100,000 that was allocated by the governor to each of the individual mayor's office. And so we got that 2 years ago, basically in 2022, I think it was. Yeah, two years ago. So what's been difficult for us with regard to CIP funds is we're competing with current construction levels of construction throughout this island, predominantly the military buildup. Finding contractors that can perform the work at the prices we can afford to pay is a challenge. So the next thing I've been working on, besides, after the replacement of the stadium lights, was the replacement of the fencing around my baseball field. And we're talking about roughly 1,700 linear feet of fencing. We went out and costed in 2022, the price to replace that fencing, it ranged right around $100,000. We've been trying to get those contractors to validate their bids, but some of them don't want to do it. He says, Mayor, you said you were going to do this 2 years ago, and we don't want to do the work to revalidate our bid, only to find out you're going to have to wait another year. So the leverage is that I'm telling people we've got to spend our monies this year. It has to be spent by the end of this fiscal year. So it will get done. I just need to be able to get the quotes that's required from us by the Department of Administration and GSA in order to put that thing out to bid. Because of the fact that the project is in excess of $50,000, it will have to go out for bid. And that's an additional 2-3 months before we actually see any actual work being done. Now, the $300,000, hopefully we'll be able to find contractors to do the work. But we're not talking about work that's $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 where you can get easily small contractors to bid on. It's just a matter of making sure that they have a vendor ID with the Governor of Guam so that they can actually do work for the Government of Guam. Because not all contractors have a vendor ID with the Government of Guam. So, the complexity is huge. And I guess in comparison to, you're a small businessman, right? Small businessman. But if you think about the requirements you have as a small businessman, accounting, maintenance, all of the different aspects of running a business, you're no different from the requirements of some of the larger companies, because you still have to do your payroll, you still have to do your accounting, et cetera, et cetera. So the challenges, because you're small, become tenfold because you don't generally have the resources to get all of that work done. A lot of times you end up doing it yourself, similar to what we do in the villages. We end up doing it ourselves because we just don't have the resources. We're not large enough. We don't have the manpower to get all of that work done. Even going out and getting quotes, calling on the phones, actually going to people's place of business and say, I really need this quote from you. And if it's a no quote, then just, can you fill out the form, sign it, and say no quote? So that we can comply with the procurement laws of this government. And our procurement laws are not easy. They're not user-friendly. And so, and that's just the reality that all of us face as mayors. and all agencies face, just because we're government. And I understand that. It's like Mayor Savara said, if they want to audit me, I'm prepared. I'm ready to go, because I can say that I look at every penny and make sure it's properly accounted for. If I didn't, we would not, I guarantee you, we would not have been successful in obtaining a USDA loan, which is typically reserved for the smart people. It's all of our educational institutions that normally get granted a USDA loan within this government. University of Guam, GCC. I mean, who would have known that we could provide the information and show the financial prowess of a mayor's office where they said, everything's in order, we'll go ahead and loan you some money at a low interest rate. Not easily done. But, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes, persistence. The bottom line is that this body, this government, the executive branch of government, asks a lot of their mayors. And we want to perform to the standards that is expected, not only of this government, but more importantly, our community. But in order to do that, you have to have resources. You don't have the resources, you got to push it away, because there are other things that need to get done.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, it kind of breaks my heart every time, I hear that everybody says, call your mayor. It's like that's the only solution these days is, just call your mayor. Mayor Savaras, madam, how many buildings in the municipality do you take care of? And maybe off the top of your head.
So I have 2 senior citizen centers. I have a Machechi Community Center, which is housing the adult daycare. And the Mayor's Council is no longer responsible for adult daycare. They're in the process of giving it to a vendor. However, because of the Attorney General signing on the contract, Division of Senior Citizens Department of Public Health has actually taken that under their wing until they can get over that contract signing for this is the adult daycare and dementia. So I'm housing that operation. I have the Estumbo Gym, and let me tell you a story, and I told this to the superintendent, Dr. Swanson. The Estumbo Gym is actually owned by the Department of Education. In 1998, the Department of Education built the Estumbo Gym with Department of Defense funding that DOE had at the time. But because it was built in an area where only an elementary school was, they turned it over to the municipality, which was at the time Mayor Rivera. Mayor Rivera did not like the location because he wanted the gym to be built between Maria Ulloa and Benavente Middle School. So he didn't. So for a year and a half, it was not operated. When Mayor Duenas and myself came in as a mayor and vice mayor in 2001, we have an MOA between the Department of Education and the Dedido Mayor's Office, where the Dedido Mayor's Office has full control and of the use of the gym. So we pay all the utilities, power, water. I was able to get a grant. We maintained the facility. Now, if DOE had maintained it, it would fall apart, right? As we see their maintenance, history, right? So the gym, we were able to get a GURA grant, CDBG, to make it a Tier 2 shelter so that we can be the immediate shelter after the disaster, so that we take the shelterees out of the schools, the primary shelters, and then the school children can come back to school while we take care of the families that can't go back. So we were able to get a grant. It is a Tier 2 shelter. So we've maintained, since 2001, we've maintained, using our funding, the Mayor's Council pays for the utilities, and I made it very clear to Dr. Swanson that if this was still DOE property, it would be falling apart like their schools are, right? But we make sure that that facility we keep and maintain. so that the community can use. It's been tough for the last 2 years because it's the home court and PE facility for Astumbo Middle School, and it's their home court for all their home games. It is a shared facility for Ukudu High School and the home court currently for FB Leon Guerrero. Because after school at Ukudu, when they need to practice for their games, they can't practice in their own gym because FB Leon Guerrero's in there. And so they can go back after hours and play in their home court in their gym, but FB Leon Guerrero needs a home court for their home games. So we're at the Astumbo gym, very minimal community use, but we are maintaining it. And I have a staff that continues to maintain. Thankfully, the summer's coming up and we can have programs for the community. And this is why when the proposal or the inquiries about having JM Guerrero be used as a a facility for Simon Sanchez, my municipal planning council and I opposed years ago because they would use the sports complex facilities to use as their home court, home fields, PE facilities, and that again will take away from the community, which I totally oppose, because the sports complex is used by the entire island community and not just the northern villages. But getting back to your question, we have 3 community centers, which are senior centers during the day. We have the Astumbo baseball field and basketball court next to the Senior Citizen Center. We have the Astumbo gym. We have our office and all the Lenchuk Park facilities there, which we are building. We're almost complete with the outdoor basketball court gym. We have a tennis court in the area. We have maintenance of the Astumbo Gardens baseball field and basketball court and outdoor facility. And then we are co-caretakers of the Derido buffer strip as well.
So all of that, with all your other responsibilities and everything else, plus all of that again, and you get the same budget
Yes. The only thing is,
as everybody else.
Again, it's based on whatever year's road mileage we're using, like Mayor Gokwi said. Sometimes we're using the 2009 road mileage, then we'll go to a 2000, what was the latest, 2017 or, no, there's 2009 road mileage is still what we're using. And of course, 20,000 across the board, then we go up. Most of our other special funds is equally divided. But again, you know, if Chalampago's fuel bill for the year is 30,000, mine will be over almost 40,000, so.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, I have 2 more questions, I think. You mentioned non-appropriated funds. How do you generate that? And for this year, how much was generated and how much have you used?
We generate through our non-appropriated funds, we generate it through the funding is coming in from our Derido flea market operations, and it's $10 a space. The spaces are 16 by 16 spaces per day. So Saturday and Sunday, if you get 1 space, it's $20 for the weekend. And that's the only thing that we generate funds for through right now. We do not have a fee schedule to rent out any of our facilities or any of our basketball courts or baseball fields.
Maybe off the top of your head, you can tell me how much you generate?
About $8,000 a month.
$8,000
Yes.
a month, okay. And so not everybody has non-appropriated funds?
No.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, because I mentioned this to the president, that, you know, we need to find a true funding source for you all, you know, somewhere where you can, that's adequate and can generate funds so that, you know, we can bring some equity to the mayors and their services they provide. And I think I have one more question. Maybe Mayor Adlig might want to answer this. You know, picking up dead dogs on the road can be a biohazard. I think so, and maybe to the health of your safety of your crew. And we all laugh about it and joke about it. And I wanted to, maybe you can illustrate for us, how do you do a removal?
We're in somebody else's house, mayors of ours. Well, so are we trying to prove that it's hazardous? Because I'm going to tell you that for me, it is hazardous. Of course, you have gloves and you pick up the dead animal in whatever form it is presented to you, and depending on the situation, it's placed in a trash bag and brought to the dump, and that's how that's supposed to be taken care of. Have you been to the dump? Because depending on which dump you go to, I believe it's very hazardous there. And then, of course, but the definitions of what hazardous pay can cover, I think, might be the issue. It might. I have to say that I think every mayor will attest to the fact that our workers, and maybe even some of our office workers and ourselves, do or perform hazardous work throughout the village, on any given day.
Yeah, I'm just asking because, you know, when it happens to me in my yard or whatever, you know, I mean, it's horrible.
It is.
Yeah, and
Well, and then we have to contend with pigs now, and pigs are 300 pounds, so, you know, it's not the little cat or the little dog anymore. There's pigs. And
even
then there's-
pigs now.
Oh, pigs for years now. Feral pigs are a big problem.
Yeah, I'm not against your increase in budget. When I was a customs officer, time and time again, the director would come down here and ask for $8 million budget year after year after year, and that's all he got. And I just don't understand how he can manage that. How can you do that? And you know, you don't have to tell me that, you know, if you're running on the same budget for years and years and years with the rate of inflation and the cost of everything going up, you know, how can you operate like this? It's just unfathomable. But maybe, Mayor, you might want to add something to that, Mayor Chargaliff.
Senator, if I could just also finish that, as far as the hazardous and the animals. So animal control, this body may have been enabled them to hire more workers, right? Animal control workers. That has worked for them. However, there's still an increased amount of animals in the villages that we have to take care of. And so it's not only the employees, but also the supplies. So when we talk about the increase in supplies, we have cages, and cages don't last forever. And wild animals are wild. They're not domesticated. So they're not going to just want to waltz into the cage. They're going to break that cage. They're going to find a way to break that cage. So, and cages are at least $350 each, depending on what size cage you buy. So, and you just imagine any given office, how many cages they have and how many times they have to replace it or even repair it. So the cost for supplies has increased, especially in the realm of animal pickup, dead animal pickup.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything. I will try to you know, push for your budget and do everything I can to advocate for you. I do understand thoroughly, you know, all your concerns, and I wish I had one of those genie in the bottles. You know, you want 19 million, I got it for you. But Mr. Chair, I have nothing further. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Thank you, Mayor Savares.
Thank you, Senator Snickers. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions? And I'm almost sure you do. Please feel free.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to you mayors, Mayor, and President Alec, and all you mayors for all your work and for testifying today. And I know some of these you've brought up before in different budgets. So let's just start with the general principles. So you're asking, President Alec, that we give you a lump sum budget, but you said that this year I solicited specific budgetary needs from each office. Their requests are reflected in our submission today. Therefore, we ask for a lump sum. How will it be distributed?
So it'll be distributed as they've requested.
So their requests all come in like perfectly fair?
No, they did not come in perfectly fair, not at all. And I'll be honest, I'm very grateful for Mayor Chargalov's presence because his budget was, truthfully, one of the larger budgets. Most budgets came in somewhere around $100,000 each to about $200,000, and that, I believe, was actually very fair because it addressed all the needs that our current balances will not address. And so, that's primarily related to contractual services, supplies, and the miscellaneous items. And so contractual services, Madam Speaker, we talked about grass cutting. So many of us contract grass cutting services, maintenance services, to augment our 5 community maintenance workers. And so that's why that large, the contractual services, that's why it's increased so much. Most mayors also agree to, or would like to prefer, to rent heavy equipment as opposed to purchase heavy equipment. So that's the large amount in contractual services. In capital outlay, again, the capital outlay was majority in Alahan. So, and that's, yeah.
Where is that?
Oh,
Where-
so
where
I'm
do
so
we see
sorry that
that
it's not
capital
included in
outlay? I
that.
don't see it at all.
Okay, so, but it is reflected in, it's not reflected by village on the request. If you notice on, or we'll go to the budget digest, I apologize. On the budget digest on 450, object class 450, the capital outlay is 2.2 million, 2,296,500. Whereas in the past, we've never really requested for capital outlay.
Okay, so, sorry, let me just repeat. You're gonna, everyone will still be funded at the same level in the current year for personnel.
Correct.
That's correct?
Correct.
Although you have like a $5 million increase in personnel, why is that?
Well, because in the last 2 fiscal years, the ARPA paid for the community maintenance workers, and so we need to keep our 5 maintenance workers and our 7 for the larger villages, and that's what that increase is.
So,
And we're asking to keep all our vacancies.
but it's a
and-
$5 million in the general fund allocation for personnel.
But that's where else are we going to get the money?
Are you saying, is it to cover raises? Is it?
Oh, no, there's no. We
Okay,
we
so,
don't get raises.
I guess I'm going to do it again. In 2024, we gave 5
5
million for
million.
personnel,
Right.
or 7 million, and now you want 12 million for personnel from the general fund.
Well,
I think,
no,
Mayor,
it's not.
if you look at it on FY '23, as the speaker's saying, you start with 10 total personnel services, then when 2024, you only got 7, and then we moved to 12 for 25. You're asking for
Oh, I see.
5 million. So
Yeah, it's not.
So if you compare it to the FY '23, it's not that big.
It's not that
But the
big, yeah.
24, because you subsidized it with ARP.
Correct.
Okay, got it. All right, so the increase, but, all right. Just a minute. Okay, so FY '23, 9, 10, 11, okay. All right, if we compare it to 2023, then the increases are not that drastic. But
Right.
comparing it to FY '24, I see.
So we're not asking for, we have not increased our personnel, the number of personnel per village.
Okay.
We have not increased our admin office. As a matter of fact, we have 3 vacancies that we've asked this body to keep along with the funding. And so I assure the chairman that this fiscal year, by the end of this fiscal year, we would fill all the vacancies in our admin office. And that's our biggest problem right
Okay,
now.
so the personnel, the 5 versus the 7, you say the 7 are for the big villages, that's based on what?
Based on their population.
Population, okay, fine. And then, and we're not increasing personnel, that was one of my questions, all right, that's fine, thank you. And so, I just wanted to know though, because Mayor Chargaloff was saying, none of these personnel get any increases, whether they've served for years and years, but we've seen unclassified directors get increases 3 times in 1 year. And so I'm trying to figure out, they say that's all allowed according to the pay plan. So how would that be allowed for your personnel? Is it based on what the Mayor's Council of Guam decides? Is it like your decision, or is it in a pay plan?
It is part of the pay plan. It is part of the pay plan.
So if the directors can do it, how come we can't do it for your personnel?
Well, then that would mean we would request more than 12 million
So it's limited by money?
by money.
Well, I don't know how they're doing it either. They're getting
Yeah.
like $10,000 bonuses, increases in base pay.
Yeah, so we have agreed not to increase personnel
Okay.
because of the other.
So it's an agreement in the
It
mayor's
is,
council,
yeah.
how you're going to distribute your funds.
Correct. But as far as the personnel, I mean, if we have to consider that there's at least 7 to 8 per village that we'd have to adjust, times 19. And so if we adjusted that council-wide, it would be detrimental to our budget. We would have to shuffle significantly. And I don't believe the mayors are willing to do that. Now, we can, admittedly, we have not yet resolved the issue on pay for our staff, but we're happy that they at least received a little increase. I believe it was a year ago. But no, we don't increase anyone regularly.
Okay, so Mayor Chargaloff, so we're not controlling that, except we're giving lump sum, and it's kind of up to the mayor's council to decide whether they pay rent versus staff versus contractual, right? And you want an increase because of contractual and these other things. Contractual is really a big one, and capital outlay now.
Correct, and of course, miscellaneous appropriation this year is important.
Right,
The
miscellaneous.
800,000 is for
Yes.
unused lump
Okay,
sum.
and we got that. All right, can you just describe the capital outlay? It's 2.2 million.
So capital outlay, most of the requirements there or the requests there pertain to village street repair, facility repair, and parks repair. So understanding that most of the damages that were received during Mawar have been perhaps covered by FEMA, not everything is covered by FEMA, and not everything can be fixed with FEMA funds. And so the reason for the increase in capital outlay is to address those issues.
Okay, and you have a list of those?
That is correct.
And that list is approved by the mayor's council, or what's going to happen
No, it
after
is
we
not
pass the
approved.
budget?
Oh, so when the budget is passed, they will be allocated based on their request.
So their requests are approved?
Correct, because it's their request, if we get the budget as is. Right.
What if you don't? What if it's less? How are you going to allocate it?
That if it's less, that we would have to go back to the body to ensure, we probably might have to do it by percentage, I would
You
imagine.
will make a decision how to allocate it, and you have total authority of how you're going to make
That
that
is
decision.
correct.
This is where the conflict arises
Correct.
among the mayors.
That is correct.
Among the municipalities.
That is correct.
Because of the big versus small villages. Okay. And so we're not deciding that at this point, right?
Correct.
We're not approving your lists. We're not
No.
even approving how it will be distributed among the villages, except
Correct.
maybe, of course, we're kind of obligated by law to pay personnel,
Right.
right? Okay. And then, but I understand the reasons for the requested increases, of course, in equipment, supplies, contractual. But I'd like to see the capital improvement list, and if you could just make a note, like FEMA denied or whatever, that would be helpful.
Sure.
And, oh, if we could just talk very briefly about the insurance. So if, I know Mayor Savares, you said, will, FEMA would not cover certain repairs because the building was not insured. If it was insured, would it be covered for typhoon damage? Is that your expectation too, Mayor Guåhan?
Well, I mean, so her situation is a little different. So when you use FEMA monies to repair something, and then it gets subsequently damaged, FEMA is expecting that insurance will cover a majority of the damage that occurred. And then whatever is not covered by the insurance, they would supplement. But in this case, damage occurred, there was no insurance on it, so that Dedido no longer, or did not fulfill the requirement for insurance. Ours, on the other hand, is based predominantly on a USDA loan agreement. It's like a bank loan or an SBA loan. You build a house, SBA gives you money to build a house. They require you to insure that home for its face value until the loan is paid off. After that, once it's paid off, it's up to you to decide on whether or not you want to continue the insurance. And if you do, and something happens, you'll get some monies from the insurance to pay for the damages. But if you don't, then you basically are assuming the risk of not being able to recover any costs for damage. So it's self-insured.
Yeah.
But under the USDA loan agreement we have, it has to be insured.
Okay.
Period. It's not an option.
Is there any facility under the Mayor's Council that is insured, that you're paying insurance on?
No.
Okay.
Well, and the other thing I wanted to mention, since you asked about payroll, I mean, I know that the budget that was submitted, and I annotated it on my request. I did ask for 6 additional positions, basically in order to stand up this new multi-purpose center, which is 30,000 square feet. There's going to be, and it's our intent to basically open it Monday through Friday, including holidays, that allows us to be able to provide recreational activities to the community 365 days a year from 6 in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. If we don't get the additional personnel requested to operate this new facility, especially in the event that there's a declared emergency, we may not have the personnel to properly manage the activities that we anticipate this facility can provide to the community. And it's not just Ordo Chalampalgo, it's the island community. Because as a shelter, this thing actually can, and we've actually laid it out, that can actually accommodate up to 200 shelteries. And that's 10% of that 200 is for persons with special needs. If you look at the FEMA guidelines with regard to sheltering requirements, those with special needs may require or do require an additional square footage of space in order for you to accommodate those needs. And so, based on FEMA requirements, we can handle up to 200 shelteries, Tier 1, and this is at the direct declaration of condition of readiness 2 through the actually emergency, and then when we go back to condition of readiness 4, and until such times as these shelteries can actually go back and try to rebuild their lives from whatever devastation occurred at the time. And so it's important that, I mean, I'm not sure, I know Jesse's good at doing his job, but there was a request for an increase in personnel, specific to our village. That was 6 additional personnel to operate this facility. If we don't get them, that means we may only open up, 4 hours a night, and instead of it being 7 days a week, it may end up being 5 days a week with the staff that we have. Again, this body dictates, and to some extent the council dictates what we can or cannot do, what we are or are able or not able to do. And, I would encourage, because, I mean, this was an exercise and an effort by the mayors who did submit a budget, but, I mean, as I remember Chairman St. Augustine, when he was on the Guam Education Policy Board, or the Guam Education Board as it's now called, we were sitting on together during about the same period of time. And he was the chair, and I was the Mayor's Council of Guam rep. And he always wanted to shift, a lump sum budget to the Department of Education down to where it was an individual school budget so that the principals could manage their funds. And so that's, I believe, how he's, the direction the legislature had gone towards is giving the Department of Education funds, but school specific. I mean, if you requested this amount, you may not get everything, but they're going to, you guys are going to try to give them what they had asked for. And I ask that you do the same. If the mayors had submitted a budget, please ask for what we had requested. And if an allocation of those funds can be based on the budget submission of each individual mayors. Because, again, what happens, you give us a lump sum budget, the council, and it's really the officers, the council and the executive director say, okay, we know we have to pay for personnel. We know we have to pay for utilities. And then whatever special projects are determined that they want to fund in that fiscal year.
Yes, Mayor, but also it's just
I know it
not
is.
that easy because
I know it is.
Your village, for example, in Narahan are getting a separate fund source, right? $150,000. Some of the mayors have non-appropriated funding sources of revenue that have been allowed by law. Some don't have any of those things. So,
Absolutely.
So, I mean, we can consider all of those, but then, and DOE hasn't been distributed by school. They're very similar to this situation where it goes to the council and then they divvy it up based on priorities. Like this year might be, the priority to cover your insurance or something like that versus next year. Yeah, I'm not sure, but I'm trying to figure out how we have, I don't know, Mayor Alec, can I ask you, last year I think we had a spreadsheet that showed us how much each village is getting based on the different formulas, the two formulas now, right? One's by population and the other one by road, and how much they were getting based on that. Now, I guess we're going to have another column that's going to show by request for CIP or whatever other, some of them are personnel, we're seeing, and all of that, right? But we don't have that in front of us right now, unfortunately.
Take a look at the little handout with the pictures on it.
Yes.
There are 4 pages. The second page compares FY 2019 and our
Yes,
FY
but that's-
our FY 2024 at the village level. This fund
Right.
for
Well-
FY 24 is what I know, and I gave it to him. So this
No.
particular sheet.
I know, but I'm asking him for 25 versus, I'm going to ask him, my next question is, explain this difference between 2019 and 2024, because I don't think it's as simple as it's being let on either. Part of it, like if you compare 2023, 2024, you're going to see it's less, but in reality, it might be very close because of the ARP funds that covered those costs, right?
Okay, but I'm not sure what document you're referencing.
Okay, we don't have, what I'm telling you right now is we don't have a spreadsheet like we had last year that showed us the different, each village by formula, right? And then this year you're asking for more on top of that, so that would be an additional column of, extra requests. And those are all miscellaneous, all different categories. CIP versus personnel versus insurance versus other things, right? So, and understandably, so I don't have a problem with the different requests, but I just we can't see them. So my question to you, and I'm thinking now, based on your earlier explanation, that if we compare 2023 versus 2025, the differences aren't as large as, they're explainable, right? But it's this 2024 versus 25 it looks like we gave you so much less, but that wasn't really the case. It's because, you didn't get a decrease in personnel. You covered your personnel with ARP.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why it's hard for me to gauge, did we cut the personnel? No, we didn't, but it's really just hard to follow it based on that alone. So that's why, for me, yeah, the 2019 versus 2024, I don't know, maybe if you can look at this later. So this was submitted by Mayor Guåhan, and this is based on general fund, Mayor Guåhan? Or Mayor's Council allocation? Yeah, Mayor's Council. Yes, and that could be the other issue, right? Like, we don't know what was skimmed off here versus the budget. So that's all I'm saying, is there's other factors in here that.
I guess one of the things that I did not consider, Senator, and maybe I should go back and take a look at it. I didn't take a look at the lump sum budget that was allocated in 2019 and compare the percentage difference to 2024. And that would include ARPA, that covered, like Mayor Alec had said. But when it trickles down to the boots on the ground, which is the mayors and our staff that do the work that we expect of them.
I agree.
It was substantial.
This should be explained. I also want to know why 2019 versus 2023, right? And we'll just have to maybe rely on OFB and President to further explain that. Because if there are questions today, there's going to be questions when we get on the floor regarding that. But I have no problem with the individual requests by the mayors. I support that. I just don't want to have another huge fight among the mayor's council because we give you a lump sum and then it gets allocated a certain way and that there is not a consensus as to that. So if there is, I'd like to see that. If there's not, then please explain that to us so we know exactly what we're getting into. Thank you.
Can I say something, Speaker? So, yeah, I am sorry. So, part of the big push for us to put in our individual budgets as mayors is that, I mean, we've heard.
We asked you to last year too.
Well, actually, I asked you guys to challenge us to do this.
No, we want that, so I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, but so anyhow, so we're here at this juncture. This is our very first snap at this. I know your concern is the fact that after we approve this lump sum budget, how is the division going to happen? So I guess what Mayor Alec is saying is that he has his own individually written out as to how much whoever got. But I think I would prefer that I came up here and only vouch for Inalan and justify for Inalan, and you guys can, rattle my cage, drill me, grill me, whatever, and let me get what I deserve after I'm done justifying. And then also, if I tell you, for example, that I'm going to build a covered gym, and you allow me to get that money, and I don't fulfill that come next budget year, you can hold me accountable to that. And that's why I prefer that methodology as opposed to right now, because since I came in,
It's a good methodology, Mayor. The problem is we don't have that before us. So that just one missing link, that's all. And so maybe we just have to follow up, but I agree. And thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And Mayor Chagloff, I've already asked the President, Mayor Alec, provide us the individual villages so we can sort it out. Like I mentioned earlier, my OFB director did go to the Mayor's Council, try to work it where we can give it by individual village, but when they count all the villages, there was a certain group of villages that challenged it. So we're gonna end that, and we're gonna try to figure it out, and I'll get with my colleagues, my vice chair, the oversight chair, and the speaker, and we'll figure out how we can give it, because we don't want the building that's being built already to default, okay?
Yep.
We want to make every village be able to survive.
I totally agree.
Okay, and I'm not going to tell you, you're the front line, you know who you guys are. We just want to figure out a way how we can make sure that funding is distributed, I guess, maybe fairly, and there's some equity here, because it's obvious, some villages are, I'm not going to say they're getting more than they should, but I know for a fact there are villages that are not getting what they need. So we need to fix that. And with that, I'd ask...
Mr. Chair, can I just ask one more question?
Okay.
Just one more, yeah. Just, were you able to receive, or you or your staff able to receive hazardous pay for work during or after the typhoon?
No, it wasn't considered hazardous pay. It was considered premium pay, which I think is different from hazardous pay.
And under, is that under Gov Guam or is that under somebody else?
It was through Homeland Security, through Civil Defense.
Premium pay, okay.
Correct, yeah.
And is that sufficient?
We consider it sufficient as overtime pay for our staff, but when it comes to hazardous pay, I know that the majority of my colleagues have been pushing for hazardous pay for the maintenance workers.
There's a bill pending, yeah.
Correct.
All right.
And so, Speaker, because you mentioned that, again, I think the definition of those employees who can receive hazardous pay is important, because even if the bill passes and our employees don't qualify under the definition of hazardous pay, it's useless for us. So I think that might be something to consider as you think of including the Mayor's Council under hazardous pay. Because if the definition of hazardous pay is not inclusive of our community maintenance workers and our office staff perhaps, then they won't receive the pay.
Okay. I just spoke with the speaker. That bill's in my committee. So we'll figure it out to get it out. Because what we need to do is have the hearing, then change or take a look at the bill and see how we can make sure it works for the mayors, for the employees of the villages, okay? Because you're right, if you follow the standard of GovGuam rules, it doesn't apply. So we just have to word it right, so it's only applicable to you folks, or your folks.
And, and Senator, you're absolutely correct. And so obviously people that are receiving hazardous pay is law enforcement, firefighters, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
And so instead of calling our people community maintenance workers, we can call them municipal, responders. And then under that title, that, adjusted title, with the same pay scale, then you can include that specific new title for these.
When we get to that hearing, then we'll word it then.
Yeah.
But I know where you come from. And with that, so we can move along, Madam Vice Chair, Senator Zaidegui.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to my colleagues, and definitely good afternoon to the Mayor's Council, President Alec. Thank you for providing your, at least we don't have to worry about you holding back, like other agencies being told what to put down. But wow, that is quite huge, increase. 134% increase on your budget is quite large, and we want to justify everything. A lot of the questions I had was asked by the speaker, and trying to find out where the money that was used prior. I mean, I understand that you were living large, with COVID, since you've received quite a bit of funding to the Mayor's Council, and I mean, I call it living large because of all the money that you were getting. And then yet, I was just really surprised to hear that there is $8 million still sitting around from FEMA, right? Is it FEMA? And then $5 million from ARPA? ARP?
No, they're both ARPA.
Oh, they're all, okay, so $8 million from ARP?
So 5 million is the balance,
Okay.
around 5 million is the balance from the first tranche that we currently have.
Okay.
And 8 million is in the second tranche that has not
Okay.
been transmitted to us.
Okay, and when is the deadline that it must be spent before you lose it? For ARP, I know it's the end of this year. If
That
you
is
do not
correct.
utilize it, you will lose it. And what's the possibility of the mayors not being able to utilize the 5 million?
There is a big possibility, Senator, and that is the reason for my request from each office to provide a plan, so that once for the remaining 8 million, once that is received, we will execute the plans that they have submitted to me. The 5 million that we currently have from the first tranche, as I mentioned to the chair, the majority of that is actually being worked on as we speak. And so we have a new executive director, and so the new executive director is working with the Department of Administration to, it has already been executed, but the vehicles, the computer hardware, and the computer software are big factors in the 5 million. And then the balance of that 5 million, once again, has already been distributed to the mayors, but the expenditure of that balance was dependent on the purchase orders and the purchase order issue that we have with the financial management system.
Okay, financial management. Is any of these under procurement?
Protests?
No, not protest, but have you gone through all procurement on this funding?
So right now, the three things that I mentioned to you, that's what's going on with it now. As far as the balance, everything has to be, like I said, it have to be de-encumbered and then
Right.
new requisitions created.
It's cutting it very close, and
It
it's
is.
very, 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 very concerning at this point. I don't want to see any money having to go back. And that's just a, thorn in the mayor's side, to have that, it's unfortunate. I don't want to belabor this. We've been here almost 2 hours. I know that Senator Brown has quite a few questions to ask you, and I continue to listen, and I'm looking forward to that list coming from the mayors. I always feel that the mayors really know what they need and amongst each other, and that this body, should actually just let them decide. It's always been my choice, but giving a lump sum. I do want to thank Mayor Guåhan for all your years. I'm not sure if you're running again, but I want to take this time. Yeah, you're not running, so I just want to take this time to say thank you. I lived once in Chalampago. I voted for you at one time. And all the good work that you've done there, and making sure that the host community funds were spent in a way that's going to definitely benefit the whole village of Order at Chalampago, and then other villages surrounding, because they can come there. Hopefully, you've always been welcoming. Mayor Savaras as well, I want to thank you for all your years of service. You're an icon, actually, on this island for that many years, and being able to accomplish the largest village in Guam, and accomplish all the things that you have done, especially with your constituents. I want to thank you so much for all your years of service to the people of Dedido, and then some, because I know you've done things outside of Dedido for the people of Guam. So thank you so much, Adonglusa Masi, for the two of you. I'm looking forward to seeing the President Alec, and of course, and Alohan Mayor, your continued hard work for your villages as well as the people of Guam. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Senator Brown.
Half a day, Mr. Chair. I'm still here. I thank you, our mayors, of coming here and providing your testimony. I know it's a tough job. I mean, sometimes you're preaching to the choir, because you might be under the assumption that those of us on this side of the aisle don't get visited for all the other things people think we should pay for: power bills, funerals. We get our share because we're an elected office also. So we empathize and certainly know that, because you're closer to the ground, so to speak, we understand those challenges that you're facing. I always try to look at the budget, because I've been here long enough. I first got elected to this seat 30 years ago. And I've been through hard times in this legislature, when we've had to make very difficult decisions with regards to the budget. And while I know in recent years, because of our pandemic, because of this military growth that we anticipated, certainly leaving our last administration, that we'd have a 10-year period of increased revenue coming into Guam as a result of it, we also anticipate that's going to be in decline. And so the leaps and bounds of funds that, including this legislature, and some of my colleagues have no reservation, appropriating, taking on long-term debt, that I am concerned it'll be past my time in the legislature when, the roosters come home and the chickens come home to roost. But that time's going to come, and there's going to be a lot of things we've obligated our people and our taxpayers to that we're not going to be able to pay for. I've been through when we've had to furlough employees. I've been when we've had to take pay cuts, including in this legislature. I'm just lucky I didn't have a home at the time, because I wouldn't have been able to make my mortgage. And I didn't have a lot of personal obligations. And so I kind of still look, at budgeting through that perspective. It's nice when we get extra money, but unless there's sustainability, that you can have some sense of comfort with, then fine. But I don't feel that. And I know that in the not too distant future, in a few years, we're going to really be challenged, because this government has grown by leaps and bounds. Just the pay raises alone, and people go, oh, you don't support the pay raises. I don't have a problem with pay raises. Can we sustain them? That's my concern. Are we going to be able to sustain what we're putting in place? I spent some time, and I probably since my statistics class in college, and that's been a few years too. But I wanted to go over this, because I've heard this position before between how do we address the small villages and the big villages in terms of appropriation. I mean, on average, most villages get 300 plus to 400 plus thousand, and then maybe, I guess from your figures here, maybe 90,000 to up to 130,000 if you have a gymnasium that you're also hosting and supporting in your village. But let's give an example of the breakdown just based on population. Per resident, because I know this has been an ongoing argument. I appreciate the efforts of our mayor from Alohan of raising this, because even though he's from a small village, he's acknowledging the inequities. The breakdown here, and this is just my math up here with my phone, Dededo on average per resident receives $10.45. $10.45 for the year. Jigo, second highest population, $24.21 per resident. Tamuning, $25.38 per resident. Mangilo, $34.84. Barragata, $54.88. My home village of Ordot Chalampago, we get $46.21 per resident. Santa Rita, $47.30 per resident. MTM, $48.91 per resident. Jonia, $48.58 per resident. Agate, $89.97 per resident. Agana Heights, $83 per resident. Talafofo, $86.20. Sinahanya, $132 per resident. Inalahan, $143.72 per resident. Asan Maina, $152.18 per resident. Malesa, $209.92 per resident. Pidi, $205.93 per resident. Hagåtña, $327.13 per resident. Yamatic, or Humatak, shall we say, $473.02 per resident. Now, in terms of vice mayors, and this came up a few months ago with the unfortunate passing of the vice mayor of Sinahanya, I don't know, it might have been in the day when the decisions were originally made, because I know a lot of families, like those that moved out of Sumai moved to Santa Rita, and certainly like my family that was here in Hagåtña after the war, they moved up to Sinahanya. So the village of Sinahanya had a vice mayor up until a few months ago, even though it currently, as of the last census, only has 2,611 residents. Understandable for Dededo, with a population of 44,908. Mangilo, you have 13,476. Tamuning, 18,489. Jigo, 19,339. But yet we have Hagat, 4,515 residents with a vice mayor. And I'm certainly open to the discussion, because certainly our mayor from Dededo, with the largest population, when this issue came up, I'm open to the discussion. I actually we drafted a bill, that perhaps maybe we need to address, and I don't know if the need, I'm sure there's another day, another discussion, whether or not large villages like Jigo and Dededo maybe should have an extra vice mayor. I don't have a problem in equitably distributing the resources to make sure we have every opportunity to maximize the direct outreach to our residents because of this inequity. And I know it's internal politics, let's not kid ourselves. That someone's not going to want to give up something. I don't blame any village of not wanting to, because no village is going to say we have enough resources. But at the same time, we also need to ensure we're more equitable. And I think this simple math here is showing how inequitable the distribution of funds are from one village to the other. And I know that's something that we need to talk about. I don't think the road mileage at all should be the reason and the measurement under which we determine what the amount should be for that village. I think population is a real issue, and certain extenuating factors, like if you do have a community center, if you do have a gymnasium, that needs to be taken into consideration. And then probably after that, maybe we should put in place a formula so that depending, be it 5,000 or 10,000 residents, whatever the number is that's determined, that village gets according to that, simply based on population, so that we can have more support and outreach for our residents. Because you're finding, my home village of Chalampago is 3 times the size of Inalahan, and yet Chalampago only gets $6,000 more than Inalahan. So I know it's challenging, I know those issues are there. I understand the desire for a larger budget, but I have to tell you, Mayor Alec, that request is substantial. It's a substantial increase. I know the needs are great, but I've also been at a time of having to manage, and how do I effectively manage? I'm not saying live with what you have. I think we should support definitely an increase. I don't know if it's to this degree, because we have to address the rest of the needs of the community and the government. But again, it comes down to, and I don't hear it enough, not necessarily from you as mayors, because I know you guys are definitely out there, engaged with your community, but department after department. We don't hear what they're doing to manage or maximize what they have. We simply hear, oh, we need more money or we can't function. And I'm like, wow, I could do that job. I qualify for that job because that's all I got to say. And I just think we need to be mindful of that because I'm cautious because, you know, this is wonderful now. The money's falling from the sky and we're bragging about our $21 million in excess revenue. But we're not talking at the same time what has already been obligated towards that. And what are we doing as the amounts start to decrease? Because that is the reality that we are and will, and perhaps it's going to be a future legislature that's going to deal with it, but I think for the time we're here, we need to make responsible decisions. So I appreciate your input. I hope at some point we can come to at least, if not an overwhelming consensus, at least a general consensus of how we should go about addressing the budgeting equation so that we can be more equitable to our residents. I mean, I don't know if Mayor Savares, you have any comment on that? Certainly, you being the head of our largest village.
Yeah, I like the idea, but you know, to have another elected person there, I think what we need more is the maintenance staff, the community maintenance workers. You can pay 2.5 community workers for the price of 1 vice mayor. And if you include benefits, you can pay 3 bodies there. And that's what we really need in the larger villages. And that's why we continue to advocate for more community maintenance workers. You know, I know that that was my request. I didn't put any capital improvement request in this budget, but I did say that for the larger villages, I had a formula for every 5,000, you get 1 additional, over the 10,000 threshold, 1 additional maintenance worker, and for every 7,000 in population over the 10,000 threshold, you get 1 additional municipal clerk. We need people that are going to operate, not another elected position to contradict what, you know, the other elected positions are wanting to do.
I think those, again, I look forward to that discussion. Maybe we should have a more informal roundtable to talk about it.
Maybe in January I can get together with you. I will not be a part of the body and give you more ideas. I even thought about consolidating villages to make it equal.
No, I don't know if some will go that far. They love their villages, but I love mine. I love Ordot Chalampago. But I certainly, I mean, I think what you're proposing with regards to the additional population to me is more than reasonable. Even that, some would argue, is really not enough, but it's certainly, to me, it allows the opportunity for larger villages with larger populations to have a better support base. And my concern in the government as time has gone on is there are these pockets where we provide direct engagement with the community that we're failing. Even though, you know, I love getting my power discount too. It's the lowest power bill I've ever had to pay because I pay for 2 households of power. I love the discount. But I'm also aware there's other critical services in our government we are not providing that really have direct impact to our community that we can assist, you know, have better quality of life. Because I'll tell you, in the end of the day, no matter what we had, no matter how much money we got in our pocket, if we don't have quality of life, if we don't have our health and well-being, we have nothing. And there's definitely areas where we can improve in our community centers and these other areas where we can get our children more engaged in sports and other activities that keep them occupied, keep them engaged in the community, have a sense of village pride. And I do want to commend our mayor. I have to tell you, Mayor Gogui, I was very saddened, even though I kind of gauged it coming because I didn't see a single Gogui sign in Chalampago coming up of you stepping down and not seeking re-election, because we have been, even though you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, we've been very pleased with the work that you've had and the direct engagement you've had with your residents. You know, I can vouch for that, and I have supported you and I have voted for you. And we will miss your work. We will miss the ability to, if we had an immediate concern or issue, if not a phone call, a message, that you would take the time to respond and try and address to the degree you could what could be done or what's the solution to fix the situation. So I at least also, you know, as Senator Tello mentioned, to publicly thank you at this point. I'm sure we'll have a resolution or some ceremony, and I'm going to make time to come and visit you at your office because we've just done great things together, including the protection of Pago Bay from large construction and money and influence, that you have stood up with your residents to represent your people. So I commend you for all that you do, and we will miss you. I know you'll still be here and still be engaged as a resident of Ordot Chalampago. even after your 10 years completed. But I've been very impressed, Mayor Guåhan, with the work you've done in our village over these many years, and we will definitely miss your presence in your current capacity.
And thank you. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I think it goes for all the mayors that get duly elected and step up to take care of their communities. That we don't do this for the money, we don't do this for the recognition, we do it because we want to make a difference. And here's what I've shared with many of our residents in Orda-Chilampalgo, is I have been and always will be a resident of Orda-Chilampalgo until the day I die. And even when I was on active duty and not physically present, I was voting in that village. I'd apply for my absentee ballots and fill them out and get them notarized and turned in and mailed on time so that my vote can be counted. And being the mayor is not the only way you can step up and make a difference in the community. That I thought I was able to do that even before the mayor. The only advantage I had was being the mayor is I was able to control the priorities of work that needed to get done or the people wanted to get done. And we've seen that come to fruition. You know, the closure of the Orda dump, the inclusion of center lane through Route 4 from Route 10 to down to the Hagati McDonald's, the building of a new mayor's office, the newest on island, and then of course this effort being capstoned by the construction of this new multi-purpose center. Again, you know, the great thing about this new facility is the fact that it will be, I mean, I'm telling you, it will be. And it may not be completed by the time I'm done, but I know that my successor will see and understand the framework or the groundwork we've laid out for this new facility. But it will be the one and only facility for at least a while until we're willing to invest in similar facilities. It'll be the only facility outside of the Department of Education system that can act as a Tier 1 shelter throughout the community. Mayor Suarez talks about Dedido, her having a Tier 2 shelter, as well as Tumuning. I think there are a couple of other villages with gymnasiums that they've hardened as a Tier 2 shelter where we can put people in, you know, after the passing of an emergency or a storm in particular. But this will be the first Tier 1. So when we go to the EOC, you know, to Homeland Security, and talk about what do we need to do to prep for an approaching typhoon in the event that it hits Guam, we can hopefully dispense of the conversation as, well, how soon can we close down the schools to get the schools ready for a tier 1, you know, for shelters. And in fact, during Typhoon Mawar, if you take a look at the statistics, typically Carbolito and GW are the two schools that are opened up as Tier 1 shelters during an approaching storm. During Typhoon Mawar, there was actually less than 200 people that were sheltered in the central region for Typhoon Mawar. So this being located where it's at, we can actually not be forced to open George Washington and or Carbolito for the central region. And I'm hoping that over time, this will allow the government to understand and create a paradigm shift that facilities managed by the mayors are better poised to manage these shelters and take care of our people as we always do, as opposed to burdening the Department of Education with this responsibility and putting additional wear and tear on those facilities. And we've recently seen how all of what we do in these schools have worn out our facilities and the need to fund them. And so we've got to figure out a solution. And since I've been in office back in 2009, this was one of the things that I wanted to work on, because Orda-Chilampalgo Elementary School is also considered a Tier 1 shelter, but it's a secondary Tier 1 shelter. You know, if GW and Carbolito is open at capacity, then the next school they'd open up would be Orda-Chilampalgo Elementary School. And so I wanted to try to make sure that that didn't happen or doesn't happen during my time. Unfortunately, it hasn't happened, or it only happened once where we actually had to open up the elementary school. But in the future, hopefully that will not happen at all, where we have to use our elementary school as a shelter. So
Well, I have to tell you, Mayor, we're very appreciative. I mean, we've had many a days of meetings in your office, and the drawings were right there in your office, and you always pointed that, hey, I'm saving the money for this. I'm saving the money every year that you've collected for the community fund that we receive because of the ORDOT dump. That's what has made this possible. And finally, our residents, our children, most importantly now. And I've told my boy, hey, pretty soon we're going to be able to see Mayor Guåhan's project. And he's excited for that, as I'm sure many of our children are. You've done exceptionally well, and we certainly wish you well. I know you have now time to focus on yourself and your family, and those are the things we all sacrifice in public office, and we wish you well with that, Mayor Guåhan. I'm sure I'll be knocking on your door just to come by and have a visit and touch base with you.
Absolutely. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
And certainly, I know we'll have other events as well for Mayor Savaris, and hearing that you are stepping down also from your position as the mayor of Dedido. What a tremendous challenge you've had all these many 20-plus years that you've served in the capacity, but you certainly have shown that it can be done, and what a woman can do, and what an ND graduate can accomplish, my fellow ND graduate. So I'm sure we'll have other venues to extend our support to you for all you've done, and just relay our appreciation, because I'll tell you, your sustainability all these years is very impressive, because it's a tough job, and I'm sure very tough in such a largely populated village, the largest populated village on Guam. So our congratulations to you, Mayor, and your success and all that you've accomplished in the time you've been serving your residents in Dedido. And nothing to say about our most favorite mayor in all of Guam, our Pika's Best from the village of Pidi, to thank Mayor Alec for your continued advocacy for your mayors and for the work that you do. I mean, you just set a good standard, a very good and positive standard, as with our mayor from the wonderful village of Magaʹhågan that I just found out recently I have a historical connection to. You've done phenomenal work, you know, Mayor Chargaloff. I'll tell you, I drive through your village and I just smile. I go, man, if I wasn't living in Ortachampago, I'd be in Inalahan, because you really have set a standard. And it's something that I tell you, at a time with our drug problem, the challenges that we're facing in our community, to see the good and positive, we really need to hold on to that, because there's just so much suffering at different levels that are happening out in our community. And when you step up and you've provided this support, and you provided a new and higher vision that our people are worthy of that, it really makes a difference. It's going to take time, but I think if we continue to set those good examples, we can have a better. We've had better in the past. We've had the better with less money, and we know that. And we certainly want to continue to see that again for our future. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the opportunity to ask questions and provide
Mr.
comment.
Chair. Oh, sorry,
Yes,
Senator
yes.
Brown. I just had a really quick question
Okay.
about the lapses. President Alec, are there any lapses, anticipated lapses by the end of the year?
There are, yes. And
And
that's,
is it per village? Is that how you determine the lapses, is per village?
that is correct.
Okay, and do you know how much that may be?
No, I don't have that number.
How much was the lapses last year when you came into the FY24? What lapses were given to you?
You know what, Senator, I don't have that information, but I can provide it.
Okay,
I know that for this year, the biggest reason for the lapses is that our purchase order issues, we had purchase order issues, and so
Okay.
they weren't able to spend it.
So, Mr. Chair, yeah, it would be good to provide us that information on what your anticipated lapses will be for an FY24. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Oversight Chair, do you have any follow-up questions you want to ask? Go ahead.
I have one more question. I didn't want to ask the question because you gave a wonderful closing already, commending you all for, you still have one more day, if you decide to change your mind. Maybe not. Yeah, but, just in case. But the question I wanted to ask, homelessness. Do you guys provide any services, or, we were talking about the expired animals and all that stuff. I mean, have you expanded, so we can say, go to the mayor's office again, or no? But do you guys have a program, or is there something at your level that you guys have done to kind of maybe help the homeless population?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many more exclamation marks after that, yes. But most every mayor has some kind of homeless problem. And we've been lucky to be able to work with OHAP, I can safely say that our homeless advocate in the mayor's council would be Mayor Hoffman, who really did a lot of coordination with OHAP and the different villages. And so I will admit as well that I think I've called him once or twice, or his office, to get us to get homeless people in the village the help that they need. So we don't have a specific program for homelessness, but we certainly deal with the problem every day, and getting them the help is basically what we try to do for the most part. And so it's another mandate that's not in statute. And I just kind of want to close with saying that everything that we do is not part of Title V. So Title V says we're grass cutters, we're maintenance. And so if you fund us based on our mandate, then you can cut our budget for sure. But that means we don't do anything else that our constituency expects us to do. And that means taking care of our Manamco, taking care of our Manhoban, taking care of the homeless, food distribution, and just a myriad of things. And you know it because we expressed it during the typhoon. But if we followed the mandate to the T, we won't need all this money. So we're asking you for this money, but then I think, Senator Guåhan, that is a perfect opportunity to discuss our staffing pattern, but also our mandate, because we're growing. We can't be stuck in decades-old, statutes. We take a look at what we're really supposed to do and what our mission is. Because if you want to erase everything we're doing now, no problem. And we can go ahead and cut our staff and cut the grass on the secondary roads. And Senator Guåhan, you mentioned the same thing. You drive down to Inalan, it's beautiful. But guess what? Like I said, it's the mayor who's taking care of that out of his creative budget. But it's not his job. Someone else gets paid to do it. Right? So, I think there's so much more that we can have. I guess we can have a roundtable and talk about those things. But yes, Senator, to answer your question, we do take care of homeless, but we don't have an actual homelessness program. But Mayor Savares could probably expound on that.
Yeah. So I know that all of us, if needed, we know who our homeless are. And unfortunately, and it's sad to say, there are local people. There are people who have families in the south, but they're in the north because it's closer to where they need to get their IDs at Reventax, to go to the clinic at Public Health in Derrida, to go to the grocery store, and they don't need to get on the transit. What we do is we provide them. We've even gone to the point where we have printed applications for SNAP and Medicaid, and we help them fill it out. We give them a homeless verification to go get a Guam ID, and it's up the hill. We make sure that they get take the transit. We give them the $1 to get on the transit, to go up to Reventax and get their ID. If we need to, we work with the Homeless OHA to get their birth certificates if they were born here on Guam. And that's how we at the mayor's offices help them. Every day, a homeless person, one or two, would come into our office because they're hungry. So we have stuff available. We have water, we have toiletries, so that they can survive for the next day. Our churches around our areas actually provide meals, just takeouts, or dry commodities, because what we get from TFAP, that goes out in less than an hour and a half when we do our drive-thrus. But we always, just from our own pantries at home, so we get support from the churches around us as well. The churches actually give out, I think it's 3 days a week, and everybody knows, because you could see them lining up from crossing Payless, crossing Marine Drive, to come to our area, to line up at the church to get their commodities. So we in the communities actually support them. You guys see it here. Early in the morning, late at night, already after they get their meals, because I serve at the cocina once a month. After they get their meals at the casino, they're already putting their cardboards out in front of the basilica. So we know who they are. And like I said, it's sad to say that a lot of them are our own people, our local people. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Oh, sir,
Well,
go
if I
ahead.
may, I'd kind of like to chime in, because I think one of the things that I hope everyone recognizes is that the mayors are not just trying to help the current category of people that are homeless. You know, a lot of what we do is try to establish programs for preventative maintenance to prevent homelessness from occurring. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've talked about routinely since the start of this project, or the planning of this new multipurpose center, is that the backside of the facility is 3,300 square feet of space that we've designated for a workshop. And so once that facility is completed, we're hoping to bring in programs like teaching people how to do carpentry, masonry, electrical, plumbing, skill sets they can they can walk away with right out of high school and become employable. And so throughout all of the villages, you'll see many of the mayors engaged in trying to not just provide and feed a person for a day, but to try to do that preventive activity at an early stage so they can be self-sufficient. And then the drug prevention programs that we promote in our communities, you know, that is prevention. So hopefully, as we grow these programs, as we bring more people in to participate in these programs, that it will ultimately create a decline in the homeless population that we see today. Because we can talk about how we can feed a person for the day. A lot of us have pantries. We have food that we've set aside that get donated, or we bring in ourselves, and somebody needs a can of something to eat, you know, and some toiletries to take care of themselves. That's something we can do easily. But it's not just taking care of them for the day. It's what we do on a regular basis, is in that we try to bring them into programs that will teach them something that's beneficial to them for life. And that's how important I think this level of government is to this community. And without your support and without the support of a budget that allows us to effectuate these programs, effectuate the activities we're trying to implement in our communities or maintain in our communities, it's like was mentioned earlier. Without maintenance, you know, we're destined to fail. And it's not just maintenance of facilities, but without maintenance of programs, we're destined to fail in that endeavor. And so I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you, sir. Sir, you have anything to
I
add?
just wanted to say something. So down in Alahan, I want to say that I started out with 32 people that pretty much are not homeless, but jobless. Took them under my wing, paid them out of my pocket. After, 6-7 months or so of watching them, their work ethic is impeccable, whatever. I go out there and I recommend them to be hired at private entities. Of the 32, 28 of them already are working. The other 4 are still under my wing, and I'm still trying to groom them. But I want to just add on, aside from the homeless that we take care of, I'll be honest with you, I have here today a document. A constituent of mine's husband just passed away. She's there trying to collect some kind of income via Social Security. Unfortunately, she needs documents to include a marriage certificate, and she was wed by former Senator Sonny Orsini. So I did come here earlier, try to see if one of the staff can help try to retrieve a copy of that document. Unfortunately, Vitals, for whatever reason, doesn't have a copy of this, so it's been making it problematic for her to get Social Security money. But I just want to kind of add that in there to kind of show all the kind of work that we do. Here I am looking for a marriage certificate. I don't even know where's mine, and I'm trying to find somebody else's own, right?
It's wonderful. We're ending this on a very, very good note. But to all the mayors and to all our municipal leaders, I thank you very much for all your hard work. Mayor Guåhan and Mayor Savars, I know you're both on your way out, and you still speak very passionately about your people. So I want to take this moment to commend you for your years of service, and along with my colleagues here, we want to congratulate you and bid you well in your upcoming endeavors and where life takes you. And God bless you both. With that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Nicholas. Madam Speaker, I know you had...
Just wanted to say also thank you to Mayor Guåhan, Mayor Savares. I'm shocked, Mayor Guåhan, I didn't know you're not going to run again. But I know you're just maybe leaving an office that you've dedicated a large part of your lives to, but I know you're not leaving your communities and they're not going to let you go, and that you're always going to be very held so strong in all of their hearts because of all the work you've done, just like you're held in all of our hearts because of all the work you've done. Really, Situas Maasi from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you to all the mayors for all your work.
All right. And again, well, for me, I think 3 mayors that are not running for re-election, it's, how many? Not running, there's Mayor Savares, Mayor Guåhan, Mayor Chargloff, who else? Oh, and Dale Alvarez, and McDonald. Oh, wow, there's 4 of you. Why? Oh, there's 7. President, can you tell us who are the mayors that are not running for re-election, that are leaving? Meleso, turn, no, ni may kambi. Daleo gipiti.
Meleso, Santa Rita, Hagåtña, Chalampago, Deredo,
Okay.
and then Anagani Heights.
Okay.
And then the vice mayors that I know of are Jigo and Mingilao. Jigo and Mingilao.
Okay. Okay, well, for me, I'm fortunate because 3 of the mayors are my family. Mayor Melissa Savares is my cousin. Mayor Guåhan is my cuñado, because his wife. The Shimisu clan, eh? And then Mayor Chargloff, my wife is a Chargloff. Okay? And then I don't know about the others, but my wife's from Santa Rita, so Dale Alvarez is in that network. And then I guess that's Mayor Juan Cruz, he's not running. See, Juan Malamanga, but he's a good man. It doesn't matter. But anyway, President Ali, we spoke earlier. You're going to give us now the breakdown. You generally have an agreement, on dispersing or funding or budgeting the Mayor's Council based on the villages. Okay? As soon as I get that, we'll work it. I work with the colleagues. I will call you to a meeting. I already know where the 2 stands or the 3 stands, so we'll move from there. And
Yes.
I'm not going to call for Mayor's Council meeting. No, we already passed that point. We're already at the legislature's level. We're going to move on that and work it and see how we can work it, because I like to see. I'm just trying to figure out, maybe you can lend the other villages your template on. We don't need to worry about signs saying speed limit. We can read it on the road. It's great. That's a great object. When people say they don't know the speed limit, atan papa sa dinauma. It's right in front of you. But we work on it because I understand where they come from Deredo. I don't know about an additional vice mayor, but the same token, the question is, vice mayors are not supposed to be doing maintenance. That's not what their job is. And I spoke to your oversight chair. He's going to look at the Title V so that nobody ever brings it up that, hey, if you want to reduce the budget, this is your chance. No. Folks need to understand what you guys do. We figure that out, make the amendment. Speaker Terlai's Bill 150 on the houses, it's going to come up real soon before the end of May. We're going to have that hearing, hopefully May 20th, and then we hear this and we get this wrapped up and make the amendments to make it right for the mayor's employees, and we can move on that one. Okay, and with that,
Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestions. Mayor's Council of Guam's budget hearing is now adjourned. The time is now 4:32. Situas Maasi, and please have a nice and safe day. Thank you.